so that everybody knows. So the thing is, I don't know if you remember a while ago when everybody started using Zoom, there were lots of people photo bombing, photo bombing the Zoom sessions, video bombing the Zoom sessions, and then Zoom had lots of backfire, right? Because they were not as secure, and people were afraid that their information was just being around. So they come up with different ways to make the rooms like secure. And then one of the things is you either need a password or people go to the waiting room. So to make things easy for you, I make things hard for me. Then you don't need a password. You can just
that's good.
Yeah, you can just log in and be with us, but I have to be here and making sure that everybody is entering the room.
Yes.
I'm like the door girl.
Oh.
Yes.
And now Carol Davidson is joining us. Brinesha, we already have Mikara, Ella, and Joe, Suna. So yeah, the room is getting full. I think we should better get started and respect everybody's time. So everybody, thank you again for joining us. This is our second event in October. I'm so happy that we have come up with a series of events and that you are really joining us. So please keep in touch. Let us know what you would like to happen. Let us know how much you're enjoying this series of events that we are bringing up to you. If you have any suggestions, if you would like to share what you know, because I know that we have lots of members in our chapter who can actually come up and say, hey, I want to share this. And we will organize an event for you to have your voice, okay? We want this to be open for everyone. And yes, Margot, you're saying something.
No, I'm thrilled with your comments.
All right, thank you. So please stay in touch, okay? If you reach out to me, you will go to like the email that I send the emails, which are like events at New York Tri-State, AICI New York Tri-State Chapter.org, or you have my personal one that sometimes goes out as well. You can just like say whatever you want to say, send out your suggestions, and I will, like work with the chapter so that we can actually do that for you, okay? So tonight we have Jessica Richards, and she's actually someone that Mikara, who's my chair in the events committee, got in touch with and brought to us. And I'm so happy that she found Jessica, because I'm pretty sure whatever she will show us tonight will really be important for us, because as everybody knows, and as Barbara mentioned last week in our webinar, there is nothing more important than this nowadays, and this is where accessories go, and this is why accessories are so important.
I'll go put on my accessories.
So let me introduce to you, let me just open here because my computer was restarting. Jessica Richards, she is with JMR Design Consulting. And she's a trend forecaster, a brand builder, and a product development specialist whose synergistic focus inspires what is now and next in her clients' catalog. Jessica will tonight use her accessories expertise to unveil the pieces and trends paraded in the last New York Fashion Week. And with her clinical eye for details, she will translate which accessories should take over the spotlight in the days to come. And without further ado, we have tonight Jessica Richards. So thank you very much. I will just request that everybody has their microphones on mute so that we have no interference. Jessica, please.
Thank you. What an introduction. That is my bio. I have my own design consulting firm. Just a little bit of background about me. I was in the retail industry for about 15 years. I worked for a few different retailers where I would do trend forecasting and product development for private labels, for vertical retailers, and have a lot of experience within design and product development. But I really branched out and did my own design consulting business as I wanted to focus on trend forecasting. This was even pre-COVID. And I think more than ever, now that we've lived through the pandemic, we're seeing that trend forecasting is really so important and giving buyers and brands guidance, but then also even taking it down to stylists and to really give our clients the direction that they need and the confidence that they need to be ready for the next season. With consumer spending habits being so streamlined, I think it's also critical for us to take a look at what are the most important investment pieces and categories. And as we were saying, jewelry, really living in this shoulders up sort of environment and atmosphere, jewelry being probably the primary accessories category, and then handbags maybe being the least. I got in a lot of trouble with the handbags community for continuing to say that. So maybe just say that once or twice tonight. But what I'll do now is I will pull up my, if it's possible for me to have screen sharing.
Yes, I will have you.
I
will have you access that. Let me see. Okay, I will have to make you a host. So I will no longer have any say on who is joining the group or not. So would you please just make sure that if someone is in the waiting room, you accept them?
Great. I'm going to multitask and do this.
Yes, well, that's what we're good at, right? There we go. Now you can do it.
Great. So what I'll do is I will pull up my presentation. And one of the other roles that I have now is that I am the trend director for the Accessories Council. So if you're familiar with this, and this is how Mikar and I connected, it's a not-for-profit organization. It's global, and they support the accessories community and really sort of promoting accessories and helping on sourcing strategies and solutions. And it's a really wonderful organization that supports brands from small startups, one-person companies, to all the way through to the luxury industry. So it's a really fantastic organization that I am proud to be a part of. And what I do is I work with them to work on trend forecasts as well as trend validation. So what you're going to see today is a combination of, I'm gonna close this out for a second. It's a combination of trends that I forecasted for the upcoming season when I first did my reports back in March and April. This is a validation of those trends. And it is also, look at me, I'm multitasking. It's a validation of those trends as well as a continuation of other things that we saw during the runway season, which is ongoing. As part of the post-pandemic changes in the fashion industry, something that we're seeing is that we're not on a regular forecast or a regular calendar for runway anymore. Designers are showing on their own terms, on their own timetables. So there was a calendar that was regulated by the CFDA, and then there's also still shows that are ongoing and still showing. So as there's continuing to be more validation, there'll be additional materials that I'll create for the Accessories Council. So there is going to be I'm not the most technically savvy person. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to close that and open it one more time. There we go. So I wanted to review the forecasted trends that I had talked about before the season started. The first being a forecast called A Quiet Place. So this was really thinking about the consumer coming out of COVID, out of quarantine and lockdown. And she's really had this moment of soft dressing, at-home dressing, pajama directional dressing, and how that time period would affect not only the way that designers would be creating for the spring 21 season, but also how the consumer would want to be dressed. We can't imagine that we're all coming out of lockdown times and feeling ready to to get fully dressed up. There's still so much uncertainty in the air. So this trend really, to me, meant not only soft dressing, but also comfortable dressing. And for me, the biggest trend that I was forecasting was this idea of comfort footwear. The next major trend that I had forecasted was something called grounded. So again, this corollary of spending so much time indoors, and what would that mean to the designers and then to the consumer product, that we would really be longing to have some sort of connection to nature again. So would there be this moment of wanting to feel grounded and feel present? And what would that mean for design? Some of the ideas that I had forecasted for that time would be a huge resurgence in greens and blues as fashion colors. We know that there's been seasons and seasons of pink, which is great. It's beautiful. It's a color family that works for so many skin tones and so many different body types. But what I imagined would be some sort of longing to return to nature and more natural colors and natural shapes. Seeing that pearls would be very important, but imagining that they wouldn't be traditional pearls. They would be more organic and more and less regular in their shape. So just all of these major forecasts, when they're in that stage, having an idea of what would be coming down the runways in this season and the presentations that we've just seen. And then third major forecast idea was this idea of back to business. So this would be capturing the idea that we've been working from home so much that there would be some sort of longing for tailored clothes and to be dressed up again. And this might not even mean leaving the house. There might be this idea that we've been working in front of our computers so much that we wanted to dress up to be in front of the camera, in front of the Zoom camera again. So what would that mean for tailored separates, for example? I imagine this idea of the slouchy suit really having a return. Again, this idea of comfort is so key, and it really is the common thread that ties between accessories and ready to wear and footwear and all of the different product categories. I also imagine that within the handbags commodity, there would be a lot of change that would be influenced by this concept as well. Would there be this idea that we would suddenly have this desire for extra large totes, an item that we haven't really seen in the market as such an important item for so long, but would we want as consumers to be able to put everything in a bag and be ready to grab and go? The idea that psychology is really playing so much into these forecasts is something that I'll probably visit from time to time as we're going through the presentation. I'm telling you, I cannot win with the technology today. Okay, here we go. So the first commodities that we're going to cover are jewelry and hair. Jewelry for me is probably the standout product commodity that has the most growth potential and most presence in 2021 and 2022. I think that there's just so much screen time. We keep saying it over and over again, but this idea of shoulders up, what does that mean? And how do we imagine that the customer will shift her spending habits to really play into this idea that she wants to register newness for the season? And really the only way that she can, or the biggest way that she can, is through jewelry. I'd also done a forecast for spring saying that because we were being held captive in our homes for a while, that the rise of private events, birthdays, bachelorette parties, graduations, all happening on Zoom, that there would be a large surge not only of jewelry, but also hair accessories. So is there some way to have not just your jewelry present, but the idea that hair accessories would mark that there's some sort of occasion that you're celebrating? So all of these ideas are in the fast track for what trends we really saw happening in 2020, but they'll continue to be really important into spring and fall 2021 as well. Statement pearls were my biggest forecast in terms of material and silhouettes. So this idea that they wouldn't just be regimented by more traditional shapes, but more organic shapes or oversized or something really present on camera. The other idea that we really have to think about with jewelry and hair accessories, across the board, I would say for all accessories, but really in those two groups, is that there's going to be a really sudden departure in Q4, moving away from gifting experiences, because we can't do as much as we were. So where we saw a lot of consumer spend going into travel or different experiences or things of that nature. I think there'll be a huge shift back into the retail space of tangible goods and consumer product goods being where we see a lot more spend than we have in past years. Excuse me. So I really think that in the jewelry and hair accessories commodities, especially, we'll see a large lift in that. I normally do not have this much trouble getting from slide to slide. So here's our runway validation. What we did see on the runways was this validation. There were going to be a lot of pearls, and as we see, they are not regular or traditional. Perhaps the most prolific and some of my favorites were from Tibby, where they were addressing not only the pearl trend, but also this idea of the asymmetric ear cuff trend as well. So that's something that we're going to get into in a later slide about the earscapes. But this idea that there's just a lot of interest happening within the pearls and the statements, the size, the shape, the asymmetry of the items that we're seeing. It all goes back to this idea that there's something that's happening in front of the screen, and it's really interesting, and it's really statement and in your face. Our next trend that I had forecasted is called all natural.
Just a quick question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Would you rather have questions while you are presenting or at the end?
You can totally interrupt me as we're going through the presentation, and I think that would be great. That way we can stay within the topic.
Okay, so please, people, send in your questions. You can actually unmute yourselves if you do have a question, or if you prefer, you can just type them in the chat box, and I will read them out loud.
Great.
Good.
So this idea of all natural was it goes back to what I was saying before, going back to the major concept of being grounded. This idea we would see a lot of organic shapes, we would see a lot of nature-driven silhouettes or items, shell jewelry being another major idea besides the organic pearls. This really large desire to return back to earthiness and to being outside. So what we did see on the runways was that there was plenty of validation for this, whether it's literal shell jewelry like we're seeing here from Jason Wu, or if it's more organic shapes and more architectural shapes, even like at Ulla Johnson with these beautiful floral headbands. It's just this idea of returning back to nature and this very, very natural feeling and inspiration. Floral blooms were another big idea that we saw. I mean, from Nina Ricci, this is really extreme here, but I can see how in the mass market there might be an interpretation of this. But what you see is this beautiful, very natural, ethereal kind of feeling as the antithesis to such a digital and on-screen presence that we had in 2020. So we can see the shift that's going to happen going into next year. And then also within the organic realm is this idea of the life aquatic. So Versace had these really amazing, over-the-top, cool starfish, shell kind of moments that were happening, not just in jewelry, but also in the prints and their ready-to-wear. But we also saw confirmation of this at Alberta Ferretti as well as Stella McCartney. And there's lots of other examples that are in the runway shows. If you want to see more, I can maybe at the end of the presentation kind of talk about other shows where we saw these. But again, this major idea going back to this desire for organic, for earthiness, for natural. And I think we'll see a lot of that touching not only in fashion, but probably in the beauty sectors as well, in makeup, and the way that we're going to see styling. I imagine we'll go really back to a natural place where we may have not been there in seasons past. Within jewelry, the biggest item that we've been looking at starting with fall 20 is the idea of the statement chain. So this really prolific statement necklace, mostly in gold finish, really being the ultimate item to have in your jewelry wardrobe. We've seen so much delicate and balanced necklaces happening in the market. This is, again, the opposite of that. It's the very present, very digital sort of expression of the right necklace to have for fall 20 and beyond. And as you can see, it continued into the spring runways, and we really saw so much of this statement gold chain for spring 21 runways. This is probably one of my favorite jewelry trends in 2021. Again, as a trend forecaster, something I love to do is work in both a long-term strategy and a short-term. So imagining everyone's been locked up for so long, I really thought that within jewelry, we would see two things. One is that there would be this desire to have investment jewelry or symbolic jewelry or something that's very meaningful to the consumer to mark this time. And then the other thing that I was really looking forward to is that everyone would want to leave lockdown and go get more piercings. So it's just something, this idea of body modification to mark the time being locked indoors. And as we moved into the later stages of lockdown, we saw celebrities like Chrissy Teigen or Cardi B on Instagram stories having piercings done at home because they couldn't even go to the piercing studio. So this idea really started to pick up steam while we were still in lockdown, and then moving into post lockdown with restrictions lifting, the desire and the amount of piercing activity that was happening was really so prolific and so interesting to me. I started to call around to some of the piercing studios to get some more info on this. So what I think we'll see as a result is this idea of asymmetry, of jewelry curation, of really personal moments happening within the ears. We did have this as a forecast, but then interestingly enough, as we were looking at runways, I always find that Prada is the most directional show. And I think that what Miuccia Prada does is really laying the groundwork for things that we see for seasons to come. So when this beautiful earscape walked down the runway at Prada, I felt so validated. And I loved this idea of really just creating the earscape with all the different Prada logos on hoops, on studs. Again, we also saw other examples of this, but building the earscape is something that's part of a much larger trend of personalization and capturing your personal style that I think will be so critical for 2021. And if we think about all of this time that we've been indoors, maybe we've had more time to look at our wardrobes, we're wanting to really capture who we are more. There's also this idea that we probably don't want to be spending or haven't been spending on fast fashion as much. So we're thinking more about investment purchases and what are the bedrocks of our wardrobe that we really want to invest in, and what do we want to stand for. So expect that 2021 will be a banner year for personal style and for really claiming your own personal style and what you want your wardrobe aspiration to look and feel like. Within some of the other trends that we saw on the runway, colorful beading, a lot of this really fun mixing of colors and beads and sizes. I also think that this probably harkens to this DIY personalization trend that we saw a lot of people returning to crafting, to making things at home during quarantine. So this kind of, to me, reminds me of things that you could make on your own and make and feel personal as translated into a runway trend. And I had mentioned before this idea of decorative hair. So maybe you were attending a Zoom wedding or birthday party, something that you wanted to stand out to make you feel special. We talked about layered and stacked headbands in our forecast. We were talking about the idea of novelty barrettes. And how we saw that translated into runway was maybe not as prolific. This may be more of a mass market or consumer trend, but we definitely did see some validation for this. So this idea of Jean-Baptiste Valli wearing all the girls had a bow on their hair. Dries Van Noten with this idea of pulling the hair back, again, going back to that idea that I had mentioned at the beginning with all of the different bobby pins, and especially the colored painted bobby pins is really a cool and innovative idea. And Chanel having their little CC crown in the hair as well. Moving into footwear, we have a few color trends. The first being this idea of white. I think white is a color we will see as the champion color family, from optic whites to more yellowed whites, ivories, across the board, ready to wear accessories. It will be a key leather color in footwear and in handbags. It's just this idea of bright and starting over, and it has this like very emotional tie to it of a new beginning. And I think that for 2021 spring, this is a color we'll really see just such a desire in. It's probably one of the more difficult colors to wear for many reasons, but it is something that we'll really see a desire for validation in our wardrobes. And then secondly, this idea of earthy neutrals. So we have so much, as I said, a return to looking at our wardrobes and thinking about where we want to see investment. So as we're thinking about color, neutrals are the colors that always resonate season after season. So if we have less spend in the breadth of what we're buying and more spend in particular items and colors, we're going to go see this huge return back to safer colors, more neutral colors, seasonless colors. This is something that I think will be really important as you're thinking about styling or really having this bedrock and foundation of your wardrobe. When we get into the major ideas in footwear, comfort is key. So if we've spent so much time and energy in building beautiful curated jewelry stories for the screen, there's not a lot happening down below. I'm sure a lot of our colleagues have been wearing socks or slippers, and a lot of people have their house shoes. So my idea around this idea of comfort footwear is that we just have been so out of our heels and out of our larger shoes for so long that this would be translating into the product that we're seeing. So incredibly, I couldn't believe how comfortable the designers were showing as footwear. Balenciaga had shearling slippers on the models, Louis Vuitton with this, what I can only describe as a sleeping bag booty for your foot. Really a very interesting shoe, especially for the springtime. And then Stella McCartney with what looks like a fit flop. Really, really interesting how far this comfort trend proliferated into the footwear market for runway. I thought this was incredible, the interpretations. And even within this, there's other ideas. So the sportif sandal, we know this has been so big in the designer market. Chanel has a great Birkenstock, Dior. But then we saw that this was continuing on. So again, under this major umbrella of comfort in the footwear sector, we're seeing this very sportif, maybe it's a little decorated, but this idea of this very easy, strap it on, feeling good, feeling comfortable. If we're in the footwear market, the idea of comfort is so critical right now. The consumer is not going to be going through this winter and want to go into next season with the most fancy outlandish shoes. She's definitely going to want to continue her comfort into next season as well. What I love about this as well is that we're seeing so much of this beautiful, I'm going to use Cecily Bonson as the example here, beautiful organza puffy princess dresses with Tevas and really comfort shoes. So the styling that we're seeing on the streets and from the designers really reinforces this idea that even if they are comfortable shoes, you can wear them back to more dressed up, ready to wear looks. Other silhouettes are really resonating in footwear as well, mules being one of them. But when we're looking at the mules that are on the runway, again, think of comfort and security as being the tenets here. So we're not talking about small uppers where it's hard to walk in, or we think that there's this difficulty. It really makes you feel like your foot is securely in the shoe and that you feel as if you do have that sense of comfort and security. So this is something that we'll just keep revisiting over and over again, this idea, comfort, security over all of the different categories. As we were just saying, so the idea that this continues to move into other silhouettes, the modern ballet flat is something for me that's this hybrid between what are we wearing as a comfortable flat, but also feels very dressy and does not feel like a traditional ballerina. So this has a higher top line. It has a little bit more style and chicness, but imagine that all of these elasticized top lines are making you feel like you have your shoe on, your foot is covered, you feel very comfortable and secure. And again, another flat silhouette. There's just so many of these in the market that we're going to feel great about. Now we're going to go to the opposite. So in a season that we're so focused on comfort and security, how is it that we're going to think about platform sandals and this really high, very present shoe? What is the psychology behind a trend like this? To me, this tells me that maybe we've been feeling so insulated and so within our own personal world that we want to go back into the outdoors and outside again and really make a statement and feel present and grounded, that word from my previous concept. So imagine that there will be a lot of stacked platform soles, especially in sandals. We will see heels, but when I look at the silhouettes and the uppers, we see so much security. We see really great ties. We see really wide uppers. We see ankle straps. These aren't delicate shoes. We're not teetering around. We have to have this sense of comfort and security. And again, when we're styling or when we're thinking about our end customer and client, what makes them feel good and what makes them feel comfortable is our goal going into the future seasons. Loafers are another idea of being a great flat silhouette, a comfort silhouette, but maybe she's that back to business girl. She wants to go back to work. She wants to have a great, easy, comfortable, but stylish shoe that goes back to her tailored suits, that sort of wide, relaxed kind of tailoring. The other thing that I love within loafers that we're seeing on the streets and in runway and in future slides is socks. There's so much sock activity happening. And this is something that I personally have always loved, is a sock with a sandal, a sock, an exposed sock has been so great. But when we're thinking about the slipper wearing, the house shoe wearing socks at home, it's almost like we're just putting a shoe over it to go back outside again. So imagine that in styling and in thinking about how to complete a look, a sock is going to feel very directional and very relevant for spring 21. When we are also thinking about how comfort silhouettes have influenced other segments of the product development process, there's so much of this thong sandal upper that's happening on a really low heel or on a flat. There's not a lot to say here, but it is this idea of a comfort flip-flop shoe that's being translated into other ways. Again, comfort is paramount for this entire season in this category.
Okay, I think I'm gonna give you some time to breathe.
Thanks.
Just a quick breather. Okay, so actually, some questions are popping up here,
Sure.
And one is like, if people who are really looking to know what's happening, if they want to find out, do you think they should go and check online magazines, because people are not on the street, so we cannot follow what people are wearing, right?
Mhm.
Except if we go for social media or whatever else. So do you think that there is any media or any way that we can really see what's going on once we're not outside?
Sure. I think that for me, I do check in with the global retailers, Farfetch, Moda Operandi, Brown's Fashion. I think what's interesting is because Europe, they have been outside a little bit. I mean, they are moving into more of a lockdown situation again, but especially around the initial fashion weeks, there was a small presence of street style. So if you're following on Instagram, there are always accounts that are focused on street style, and they had some really great prolific roundups of street style and what was happening there. I think that the main idea of what we need to think about in the go forward is that what's happening now and what's happening next are not necessarily what's been happening. So what I mean by that is we're going to see that trends are going to slow down so much, and we're not going to need new ideas pumped in all the time. What we need to have are really great quality styling ideas, really, really strong wardrobing ideas, because we're going to be sticking with those for a few seasons. So really moving into this seasonless model that we've been talking about so much.
I was actually going to ask about that, because what I see is that this thing about comfort actually resonates a lot with everyone right now. We don't care about anything else. We just want to be comfortable, right? We don't want anything that is hard, right? Life has been hard enough.
Yes.
And everything that you are saying actually goes back to what Barbara brought last week regarding clothing, right? That is like comfort, 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 right? But then my question is, do you think people other than us still care about trends and fashion now that they are not going places?
Yes, I do think that there is a desire to, I think there's always a desire to buy and to update, and even within what I call my focus groups, which is my family that lives in Massachusetts. They don't live in New York City, they don't work in the fashion industry, friends that I have that live in California, friends that I have that live in the Midwest. One thing that I have found as a common thread is that never before, friends that I have in Canada and in Europe as well, this desire to look at what they have in their wardrobe and say, this is not what I want to dress like. And it's been this phenomenon that I've really experienced in my personal life. I've been working with friends and with personal clients on styling more than ever, because they're just so looking at their closet and saying, when did I buy all of this? When did this happen? I don't feel connected to this anymore. And what I've found to be really successful, even going back to the last question, is having your clients and your friends and family send you images of what they want to look like, what looks good to them. Because especially if you're an expert, you're looking at it and thinking, okay, you're really just showing me a beautiful tailored coat, a beautiful tailored pant, a white shirt, you know, the shoe of the season. And I think that that's it. It's really just capturing what is going to be the update that's new, and then where are we going to want to invest? And that's where I think the spend is going to move. So I would imagine a lot less fast fashion and a lot less deliveries within the retailers, and just a slowdown, better quality materials, and more thoughtful processes around design and storytelling.
All right. There's another question here. Actually, Gadir, she's asking you to list the names slowly. Can you remind us what names you want so she can actually do that? And then some people are asking you to write a few in the chat. And then sure. Another question, if people are looking to invest in accessories at the moment.
Sure. Okay. So in the chat, let's see. So Moda Operandi is one store, Brown's Fashion, at Net-a-Porter, everyone knows. The other big ones, Farfetch. This is a really amazing website. Farfetch is one online community. It's one retailer. And what they've done is they've connected with independent boutiques all over the world. So if you're a small family boutique, let's say in Milan, where you couldn't necessarily operate an online website on your own, it's a way that they are, the product can be shown on Farfetch and sold through this boutique. So it's just, for me, something that I think you get to see all of the styles and SKUs that you wouldn't see from just going into one store if perhaps the buyer didn't choose that for their edit. So it's a really global look at all of the different retailers and what their edits are, which is super interesting. I try to go on there once a week. It's what I love to call the endless scroll. So it's just looking and looking and looking, and it seems like there's never an end to the product that's available.
That's awesome. Someone has the microphone open, and there is this noise. It seems like plastic or something. So if you could just check your microphones, please.
Oh, and then in terms of investments for jewelry, I would say, especially in the necklace commodity, I just see this huge return to gold. I think beauty, and what I can do too is, on the last slide, I have my email and my website available. I've done so many reports for the Accessories Council that really break down all of the different silhouettes that I think are important. So what I try to do is just highlight the main and the most important ideas. But really just this idea of a statement gold collar, statement gold chain, herringbone chains, just so much around that. And I think that that's really it. Earrings, I think, that are important. I told you the earscapes. I think that sort of top of the pyramid style asymmetry is something that's going to be really happening. I see a lot less happening in bracelets and rings, unless there's something that's a personal purchase. And then maybe for the spring and summer seasons, I think there's going to be a lot of anklet. I just really imagine this idea that we're going to be super decorated next year with jewelry.
That's awesome.
But necklace, necklace, necklace for sure.
All right. Well, we can keep going. There are no questions coming up, right?
Great. So just again, I keep saying comfort footwear. So here's another one. But this idea of the, see, that's so crazy. This idea of the clog inspired shoe. This shoe on the far left was Hermes, and every model had this on. So we love this idea of a comfort clog going into spring 21. For non-comfort shoes, we did see quite a bit of strappy sandals this season. The other thing that I should mention is that because, and this kind of goes back to your question, because we weren't able to buy things this year and wear them as much as we may have, some of these super important trends like strappy sandals that were meant for spring 20 are going to translate into spring 21 because they're just going to have the longevity since the products were maybe purchased or not purchased, and they're going to move into next year. So that to me also is a fire starter for this idea of seasonless fashion. But quite a bit of strappy sandals. And if you're going to make a note, again, it's this idea that we're moving away from this very tricky, hard, unstable, unsupported look. And there's a lot more tying around the ankles, buckles, in between the toes. Like, to me, this is kind of like, it's not just a delicate, precious little strap. You're strapped in there. And this is a look, but it's also something that you're going to feel like you're not going to walk out of or break, or it's not so precious feeling. Soft volume, it's an ode to comfort in my mind. It's something that we were really thinking would be an upper category or upper trait in footwear, but also something in handbags. And that was validated as well from the runway. So we did see quite a bit of that in this idea of soft and plushy sort of uppers and sandals, but then in squishy kind of bags as well. This idea maybe that you're carrying a pillow and and you're kind of tied back to your bed where you've spent so much time in 2020. Even in the ready to wear, I think that there was a few shows, like the number 21 show comes to mind, where it looked like the model was actually wearing a duvet down the runway. So this idea of soft and comfort and volume and feeling like you're almost back in bed really resonates. Handbags is probably going to be the most challenging category going into 2021 and beyond. And I've warned my handbag friends and design partners, this is going to be a challenge. We're going to see a huge shift. Even if you're just thinking about your own personal handbag use right now, it doesn't feel so comfortable to carry your designer bags out. Where are we going? What are we doing? You're very, handbags have a high touch environment. And when I think about that, you know, my focus group, again, my aunts, when I talk to them, they're going to the stores. They don't want to put their handbag in the shopping cart. They don't want to touch their bag when they're out because they feel like they're touching so much. So what is the solve to the psychology of what's going to be happening in handbags? Maybe we'll get into it in a couple of slides. Colors, again, this really natural, really kind of drawn in palette. We will see some white, but I think that maybe less in handbags than in footwear. A lot of black, a lot of neutral, but then within handbags as well, we're seeing just a lot of this like beautiful at sunset color validation, really like a range of warm, beautiful neutrals, oranges, rusts, that kind of color story. We had talked about the grab and go tote being an important bag. So again, we haven't really seen totes this big in a long time. There's been sort of a lot of medium-sized bags, but maybe the psychology here is that you want to feel like you could just grab everything at a moment's notice and get out if you had to. So imagine there is this bit of fight or flight mentality and so much post-COVID anxiety that's driving a lot of the silhouettes that are happening this season. So there was quite a bit of validation of these very, very large totes on runway.
And also to put inside all of the face masks, hand sanitizers, and the gloves.
Absolutely. We're carrying so much more than we were a year ago. That's absolutely it. And I've even said within the large totes, there needs to be very strict organizational systems, a lot of zippers, a lot of pockets, a lot of pouches, because we are really, really concerned about that high touch. This trend to me is something that I cannot stress enough, but this idea of a wearable small leather good. So when Prada had their re-edition bags, you know, we've seen so many of the nylon bags and they have the little pouch here. But now that we're thinking less about carrying a full bag, what is the minimum size that we can carry what we need? some of the designers here, I think we're hopeful that we don't need to carry the gloves and the masks into next year, but maybe we're just a little bit over handbags right now. Again, this is why I get in so much trouble with handbag designers and the handbag community. But this idea of a wearable SLG is something that translated very strongly into runway. Chanel was absolutely, you know, it's a majority of the models with these wallet on a chain or crossbodies that were really just SLGs on a strap. Stella McCartney, Max Mara, just really, really taking down the idea that you don't need to carry this traditional handbag anymore. And within handbags as well, another idea I think we'll see is this idea of the elevated shopper. To me, this is the multi-purpose bag. So this is the bag that you are carrying to the market. It's the bag that you're carrying your work things. Again, these are very fantasy kind of runway interpretations, but if we were going to have just a really universal shape, this elevated shopper makes a lot of sense to me. Just a little easy tote. None of these are little easy totes. Maybe if we look at the easy totes on the previous page, it makes more sense. But as you can see, the fantasy has gone into the runway for this. And then in terms of materials, so much woven, so much natural feeling netting. It's that whole organic, environmental, going outside kind of feeling that we were thinking about. And then finally, this is just a sort of a smattering of other categories. We could talk on and on about accessories. I definitely could. But some of the big items we're seeing, this status scarf or the idea of a bandana, to me, this really speaks to this idea of multi-purpose and items that are great to invest in. So we saw Dior had scarves around the head and headbands at their show. Again, this to me also ties in with the having your hair back. Vince had just sort of a plain bandana covering the hair. And then Hermes always has this idea of a scarf. But what's great about this item to me is two things. One is it's multi-purpose. So if you're thinking about investing in a scarf, you know that there's a lot of legs and a lot of storytelling here. But to me, it also goes back to this idea of pulling everything back, being really present, and having the ties back to eye contact and interaction that we've been lacking for so long. My favorite, I really have to admit, I love the sock styling so much. Some of the styling was odd. There was an enormous amount of socks with thong sandals, which seems very uncomfortable and the antithesis of what I've been talking about. But like TV had these great like tube gym athletic socks with heels, which I thought was great. Anna Sui with the organza socks. Acne had tons of socks. I think it was Mara Hoffman the other day had socks with like a Birkenstock sandal. So there's so much of this. It's comfortable and it's really just like a great way to have styling and a new idea going into the new season. And then finally, this idea of being belted. So back to business, drawing it all in, especially if we're talking about these soft, comfortable separates. It gives your tailored and your more dressed up ideas a little bit of a finishing, clean idea. So to me, this would be another thing that's probably worth investing if you don't have a beautiful, timeless, classic belt in your wardrobe. Next season would be the time when we're looking through, okay, I have this in my wardrobe. What do I need? What's timeless? What's seasonless? Like a great, great belt. So we saw so much of this double belt styling or really significant belt styling in the runways as well. This is just a fun one, but I always think too, what were the designers thinking about and reacting to as we were all sitting at home in lockdown? I imagine there was talk at one point that we were all going to maybe be wearing goggles in addition to masks. So we saw a lot of clear, very goggle kinds of opticals happening. I think there'll be a lot of oversized in opticals for that reason. But to me, I thought this was really funny as a trend. Because I'm sure
also we've been on the computer so much that we
yes.
need to wear glasses for more.
Yeah, I mean, like blue light glasses, I imagine are having like enormous sales right now and doing so well. But yeah, glasses, clear opticals for sure. There's so much more to say, but I wanted to keep it to a safe amount. So all of my contact information is here if you want to talk more about accessories or see any more of the reports that I've prepared. But yeah, that's the report for today.
Well, there is here like someone saying it was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would have so many questions myself. I would just like to keep up with the conversation because there's so much that I would like to ask and say about it. But I want to know what everyone has to say. And please do not let me end this without our big picture, okay? So if I try to say goodbye and I haven't taken the picture, remind me, please, okay? So I think it's now good if you all unmute yourselves and you can ask your questions and make your comments. Everything you said to me was like, I would love to hear from Barbara because so much of what she said reminded me of what she saw. And then it's like, yes, that's really happening. It's really a validation of what she said. When you mentioned the bags, I was thinking that she brought a picture of a model who had the mini bag and a tote bag, like the both trends all together, like in one look, because we're gonna need something small to just like have whatever we need for now, and then something big to bring everything else that we may need.
Yeah, yeah.
So, well, everyone else, you're welcome to share your thoughts.
Well, I'd like to say thank you on behalf of everybody. That was very informative, and I am sure we can use it in our work. And as you were explaining things, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, that's for a creative person, that's for a classic person, that's for, so we started linking it with personality style,
right.
Definitely. So that will help us in our work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And if I have to say, you know, there's probably trends that work into all different sensibilities, but everyone wants to feel comfortable and secure. So next year with whatever or whomever we're working with, I think that's the paramount idea that we have to go back to is making sure. I'm even like, I'm thinking this is just, I guess because you're on the screen, but I imagine jewelry designers might be doing more clip-on earrings versus, you know, just this idea of like, how can we take a little bit of weight off of things? And I just, all of the design details and things that could be happening are just popping in my head.
There's another question here. If you could pick one item to invest in 2021, what would it be?
Oh, I would say for general, just to say to the consumer, I think there should be a great statement necklace. I think we're going to continue to be on camera so much, and if there's maybe something that's what I didn't include here, but this was something that I had talked about in one of my forecasts, is in jewelry, this idea of statement symbolic jewelry. And what I mean by that is everyone has something that's personal to them, is if it's a color or a symbol. Like for me, I like the evil eye. That's something I feel very connected to, but I also like snakes. So I have like a lot of snake jewelry because to me that has a symbol or a meaning that's like really significant. So I think that if I'm thinking about what people should invest in, it should be one piece of jewelry that is meaningful and will give them a good feeling about this time, about what they've lived through and what they've survived through in this historical pandemic, and something that's like, it's going to give them a good feeling when they look at it. So invest a little bit in the quality and then make sure that it's very connected to them personally. And I think that would be the right thing that they should be looking for.
Makes sense. Gadir is saying, I noticed so many bracelets, I believe. Bralettes, yeah, trends with blazers. Jason Wu, Chanel, yes, bralettes and as a trend.
Yes, I imagine quite a bit of soft bralettes, soft bras, soft intimates. Probably, again, I'm not sure who's on the call.
Rolling out of bed and just putting a jacket on and
yeah, and you know, if you've only been wearing soft bras for 6 or 8 months, imagine anything you've been wearing for 6 or 8 months, you're not really racing to go put on a pair of stilettos and a hard bra right now. You know, you probably want to find a way to wear a soft bralette and a comfortable shoe and wear it outside. So for sure, I would say like that's something that keeps on going on.
Do you believe that everything that has been happening will impact what we wear for the next? You said that it's going to be more of a seasonless trend from now on, but do you think it will take long until we are back to really wearing heels and more structured clothes? And what's your view on that?
So my prediction is this right now. I think because I've also done my fall 2021 forecasts. So those are already done. I've already presented those. I can share those if anybody's interested in that. For me, I believe that fall 2021 will be the first season that we'll see a slight change and it's almost like we're all very tense right now. When can that tension finally go? When are we going to want to go back to whatever the normal is? And I imagine that we'll see signs of that in fall 2021. One of the predictions that I had is that the major shoe we'll see is the combat boot. It will be like the comfort footwear of fall 2021. I think that will be the shoe everyone will have on. But the corollary of that will be this idea of the pretty party shoe. So we're seeing all of these great footwear designers like Amina Muaddi, or Mock and Mock, or Midnight 00, these really decorated, crazy, fancy party shoes that even in a pandemic are selling out. If you know Amina Muaddi, she did a collaboration with Fenty during COVID times, and it sold to the piece. So this idea that, yes, we're very concerned with comfort, we're concerned with this basic, beautiful styling, but there's also these things that will still happen and continue to happen. And then my big prediction for spring 2022 is that it's all going to go nuts. And it's just going to be really over the top designed, detailed and really, really over the top. I really think that's the direction it will go. So I imagine a slower start 2021 spring, then a little bit of comfort, and then it's just all going to go and be very decorated and styled, which is great too.
So we're going to be celebrating in 1 year.
Yes. So 1 year of the soft bralettes, the Crocs, the socks, and then maybe a little bit more crazy.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, I really loved it. I must say that I'm just I'm an audience to fashion. I'm not someone who practices fashion, right? But you made me want to go and check what's on, what's really happening, what I got, am I up to date, what should I do? And I'm definitely I have already got one of those chunky chains. Maybe I'll get a second one as well.
Oh, great. Great.
Okay.
Yeah, listen, don't forget to take a picture.
Oh, yes, there we go. So please, if you don't mind having your beautiful faces on so we can have a nice picture, I would like that. So whomever has the camera on, 1, 2, 3, there we go. Smile. Hey. Great. Well, thank you all very much. Jessica, I have no words. It was amazing. I'm pretty sure that everybody loved what you brought to us. I hope we can keep in touch and really have more of you sometime soon. Thank you, everybody. And like I said in the beginning, remember that we really want to make this chapter something that is bigger because you are part of it. It's not about us, it's about you. So you members, please come talk to us. Let us know what you want to do. Let us know how you can contribute and how we can help you as well. Okay, be in touch. We are gonna have something coming up in November, so stay tuned and register. All right.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye.